It is the Banner Ravens podcast. Paul Mancano and Jonas Shaffer, joined by a special guest, Pro Football Focus's Gordon McGuinness. We are going to complete today a full 7-round Ravens-focused mock draft. Go through all 11 picks that the Ravens have, whether they make all 11 picks, TBD, but we will have players in each of the 7 rounds. We're going to be using PFF's mock draft simulator to run this thing. We're going to have an absolute blast. But first, let's get a quick word from our sponsors.
For the 5th year in a row, Toyota is the best resale value brand according to Kelley Blue Book's KBB.com, including the 2025 Grand Highlander, best in resale value for midsize SUVs. Toyota, let's go places.
All right, Jonas, our word of the day is imminent. Definition ready to take place or happening soon. First known usage 1528. And our Who's Got It Better Than award today goes to Gordon McGuinness, who is the director of media strategy. You can also call him the head of content. He's all of these things at Pro Football Focus. He's a man who wears many hats, and we're so glad to be joined by him today. Gordon, thanks so much for joining us for what should be a ridiculous hour of mock drafting.
Thanks very much for having me. I can't think of a better way to spend an hour the Tuesday before the draft than doing what is probably my 200th mock draft of the past month.
Yeah, this is going to be our first, but I mean, given the amount of mock drafts that are out there, we did this a year ago. Jonas, I think our draft haul turned out pretty well. We ended up with Cooper DeJean in the first round. We had Christian Haynes in the second round, Braylon Trice, Christian Jones, Luke McCaffrey, Joe Milton, who was my put my thumb on the scale pick there, and Delmar DJ Glaze. I think we turned out with a pretty good haul. I am hoping to do a little bit better, though, this year, Jonas.
Yeah, I mean, what did I say? Like, it's a good draft if you come away with 3 starters. I think Cooper DeJean's would have been a stud. DJ Glaze started right away for the Raiders. Joe Milton, a nice late-round pick, and, hoping that Christian Haynes or Braylon Trice develops into something. So in this hypothetical world where we run the Ravens, we did a pretty good job.
We did. And for this exercise, as was the case last year, we can trade up. That's the beauty of the mock draft simulator. We're going to discuss kind of the moves that we could make as the draft goes along. We're going to keep this going pretty quickly as we go through all 7 rounds. But Jonas, in terms of your overall, if you're Eric DeCosta, in terms of your overall view for this draft, what kind of parameters do you want to set in terms of, what we want to come away with after the end of this weekend?
Well, this is a group effort, so I think we gotta suss it out in the room. Obviously,
we are each EDC. Each of us gets an initial. I'm E, you're D, Gordon is C.
So I think we can agree with Eric that it is prudent to take at least one cornerback, at least one safety, but there's still a lot of wiggle room out there. So we have to, I guess, just turn it to you guys. Like, is there a point by which we should draft an edge rusher? Is there a sum total of offensive and defensive linemen that we should be taking? Are we set on taking a kicker? And do we go any earlier in the 6th round? Are we looking at a returner? How do we want to handle the kind of backlog of picks that we have in round 6 and round 7? I mean, Gordon, what are the kind of non-negotiables for you for this Ravens draft as we attack it?
I think edge defender is a must. At some point in those top 3 rounds, I think. I've done a couple of mock drafts whereby the board's fallen in a way where I've really liked the guys available in rounds 1 to 3, and I've waited until the 4th round and then kind of doubled up on an edge rusher. But the thing I keep coming back to is if you look at the Ravens in the postseason the last couple of years, the past 3 games, they haven't forced a turnover on defense. And I think one of the things they need to do is take the same approach they took at wide receiver and be aggressive in trying to find the guy off the edge that can be someone that offenses have to kind of focus on in their game plan heading into games. So definitely want to find an edge defender pretty early in this draft.
Gordon, can I follow up on something you tweeted in February, just as the wildest of wild cards for round 1? Pretty early in the draft process. I remember this sticking out on Twitter, and I had to go back and make sure this is something that you in fact had tweeted. Going to get called an idiot for this, but don't think we should discount the Ravens taking a running back in round 1 of the draft. This was for Omarion Hampton. Are you still standing by that if he's on the board at pick 27?
I think it's it's a discussion to be had. So I wouldn't prioritize it over edge. But if a bunch of edge defenders come off the board, then I think it becomes more of a conversation. It's one of those things whereby, like, I think probably the big takeaway from me in seeing how the Ravens offense functioned last year with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry is that if I was Eric DaCosta, I would always want to, at least while Lamar Jackson is at his absolute peak, pair him with an elite running back. And Derrick Henry's now 30 years old. I think he probably has the capability of lasting longer than most other running backs do because he seems to have an incredible kind of workout regime and takes really good care of himself. But they also only have him under contract for one more season. So whether or not it's the first round or maybe the second round, it really wouldn't surprise me at all if they took a running back a lot earlier than people might expect in this draft.
All right. Well, I'm excited. We are going through 11 picks, and just to set the table, Ravens have number 27 overall in the first round. They've got number 59 in the second round, number 91 in the third, 2 fourth-round picks, 129, 136, one pick in the fifth round. That's number 176. And then they have 4 picks in the sixth round, 183, 203, 210, 212, and finally 243 in round 7. Guys, I'm going to bring up the mock draft simulator on the screen. And if you're not watching, you probably should be on YouTube or on X. Are you guys ready to begin this 7-round mock draft?
Good to go.
Let's do it. Is there anyone that we should be looking out for potential fall that would be worthy of stopping the clock and getting onto our radar with a potential trade up?
I think it depends on who's there. I mean, I think Michael Williams, I don't know if he'll need a trade up, but I don't know about you guys, but to me, he would be somebody who I think would be worth it.
The other guy I could see is Shamar Stewart, the edge defender, where if he is available and it becomes a discussion, you're arguing production versus athleticism, but he's a guy who has the athletic profile of like a number 1 overall pick. And I guess the production of a guy who doesn't go in the first round. So if he is there, kind of the mid-20s, I do wonder if the Ravens would think about a small jump up.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get this thing kicked off. And the Titans are on the clock, and shocker of all shockers, they've taken Miami quarterback. Is it Cam Ward? Is that his name? Whoa. We've already gotten a shock at number 2. Tetairoa McMillan goes to the Cleveland Browns. Travis Hunter's off the board. Abdul Carter's off the board. Ashton Genty, Mason Graham. All these guys we expected to be gone. Armand Membu. So we're now getting to pick 10. Tyler Warren, the tight end. Will Campbell, the tackle from LSU. Colston Loveland, another tight end. Ravens, of course, are on the clock at number 27. Jalen Walker goes off the board.
Oh.
Donovan Ezeraku goes to the Dallas Cowboys at number 12. Anybody seeing anybody falling that we want to stop for?
Not right now. Stewart is still there.
There's a bunch that are going to be available if Ezeraku.
Mm-hmm. Jahad Campbell has gone. So has Michael Williams and Jahdae Barron. Calvin Banks goes to the Bengals. Derek Harmon goes to the Seahawks. We're now at pick number 20. Marion Hampton and Josh Simmons.
I would maybe think about stopping at 24.
Okay.
And seeing who is there.
I hit pause as Emeka Buka, Matthew Golden, 2 wide receivers go off the board. So now we're at 24. The Minnesota Vikings are on the clock. Minnesota Vikings only have 4 picks in this draft, so they're probably one of the candidates to trade back. In terms of who is left on the board, let's see.
So
how do I get to that?
Yeah, I actually don't know if you can see the board just as it is, but Shamar Stewart is there. You also have candidates on the offensive line. I think I personally would probably just let this play out.
Let it play out? All right. Well, let's get to our pick then. The Vikings take Gray Zabel, the versatile offensive lineman. Donovan Jackson, Ohio State tackle, goes off the board. And Kenneth Grant goes off the board at number 26. And now we are on the clock. The Baltimore Ravens. Guys, here are the top candidates available. Walter Nolan, interior defensive lineman for Ole Miss. Malachi Starks, the safety from Georgia. Mike Green, edge rusher from Marshall. What are we thinking here?
Keep scrolling.
Shamar Stewart.
Josh Connolly's there. Shamar Stewart. I think PFF has Nick Emenwar rated pretty low, so he's usually not at the
Yeah.
top of this.
He's in the 40s somewhere. So I've had this happen a couple of mock drafts I've done recently, and ideal scenario whereby Malachi Starks falls, that's great. But I would be really intrigued by the prospect of Walter Nolan falling to 27.
Jonas, I know that we've spoken about Walter Nolan on this podcast. You're not as excited about having him as a Raven. Would you opt for Walter Nolan or Malachi Starks or Mike Green, who also has some off-the-field issues?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's our fictional franchise, so we don't have to worry about PR backlash for drafting Mike Green to a team that already has Justin Tucker. So if we're doing this in a vacuum, Mike Green would probably be my pick, but I think we have to have a little bit of realism for what the Ravens are and where they are in their kind of PR battle. So it's tough for me. Like, Malachi Starks, I think, is definitely the safer pick. I mean, we could also like trade back a couple if we wanted to, like if we could imagine a world in which the Eagles really want to get a Walter Nolan because of their love for investing in the trenches. My thing with Nolan, I think I've DM'd with Gordon about this, is like, you see the traits and the production is there on the film, or the production is there on the stats, but then you watch the games and it is just like it's a very, I think, defensive line friendly scheme in which they are always slanting. There's so many like tackle stunts. So he is running into good situations, but he's also running himself into bad situations where he's taking himself out of the play, or he's just kind of going to nowhere, running to nowhere against more than capable offensive linemen. So there's also the matter of like just how much of a character concern is there. Some of the scouts have said he's like a mercenary because of just how much he's bounced around from school to school. Again, not really our concern in this. So I think in this case, I would probably be stuck between Starks and Nolan, and I would just leave that to you guys.
The only question I would have is, so I feel like the Ravens probably do want to try and find like a potential starting cornerback. And I don't necessarily think there's one available here that I really want to take in the first round. But then I also think that I don't know how many are going to fall past their second pick. So if we like game plan this out and say cornerback might be our pick in the second round, how comfortable are we leaving the edge defenders until the third?
Ooh.
That's fair.
So we think about trading back?
Who are the teams that are in the trade back option? So you've got Buffalo at 30.
Well, I'm like the thing that's tricky about this spot in the draft is the Ravens need an edge rusher, the Lions need an edge rusher, the Commanders need anyone with pulse on defense. That the Bills could use an edge rusher. The Eagles are always on the market for really good trench players. So if you think, we can just trade back a couple spots and get player X, then you are really playing with fire because of the teams that are picking right behind them.
Right. The safest option might be, we've got three teams that are interested in trading up: the Bills, the Patriots, and the Niners. Safest option for us would probably be to trade back 3 spots to number 30 with the Bills. Does that sound palatable to you guys? Because I think there will still be some guys on the board between Shamar Stewart, Walter Nolan, Malachi Starks. I think those are 3 guys that I would be comfortable with taking with a first-round pick. What do you guys think?
I'm always in favor of trading back for the right
All right.
price.
Gordon, if we make all right, let's see. Let's go the Bills.
So it's usually like by the Jimmy Johnson trade chart. I think just to trade back a couple spots, you're basically getting at this point like a fourth or a third, depending on how. What it is.
So if
so we might have to force this trade, Paul. That's just based on the charts.
Okay.
So yeah, I think 30 and 109 for 27 is probably fair.
30 and 109 from the Bills, and we give up 27. Trade accepted. All right. The Bills have acquired the 27th pick.
Now we just wait and see who falls to 30.
Yep. All right. Now the Bills are on the clock at 27. They take Shamar Stewart. The Lions take Luther Burden, wide receiver. That's okay by us. And the Commanders take Nick Emenwari, the safety from South Carolina. So now we're at 30. We're back on the clock. We still have Walter Nolan on the board, and we still have Malachi Starks. You guys comfortable with either of those guys? Jonas is very
Gordon, do you
anti-Walter
have a
Nolan,
preference?
so.
I like the potential, and I think at this late in the draft, it's probably good value. And listen, like, I think if we're talking about who fits in this Ravens locker room, I mean, just being around these defensive linemen, like, they love working out. They're great dudes. You know, you throw pretty much anyone in there, I think you feel good about them acclimating and assimilating to the culture. Maybe the character concerns about Walter Nolan are overstated. Maybe just Ole Miss is not a really good situation to be in this kind of day and age of NIL and transfer portal and stuff. And going to Baltimore would turn him into the player that he could be. I mean, like, I think a lot of Bengals fans would love to have him at pick 17. So for the Ravens to get him at pick 30, it could be a slam dunk pick. But obviously, you're probably giving up on a more of a sure thing in Malachi Starks if you pass on him.
I do think as well, the thing that with Starks is that it does allow you to be more aggressive with Kyle Hamilton. Like, I hate the prospect of, like, I know it worked in the second half of last season, but I hate the prospect of feeling like Kyle Hamilton has to be almost exclusively a free safety, even if it is like, you know, two safeties back there. Like, I like having the flexibility to be more aggressive at bringing him up into the box, using him as a blitzer.
Yeah,
so I would probably lean Starks.
I would too. I'll be honest, guys. I like Malachi Starks a lot, so I would run this pick in. But Jonas, go ahead.
My only, and again, you know, the past is prologue, only to a point. Like, but you look at some of the impact safeties from last year's draft. Like the Houston Texans got Bullock in the 3rd round. The 49ers got Mustafa in the 4th round. I absolutely agree that Malachi Starks would free up, Kyle Hamilton to do more of the stuff that he did in 2023 when he was so effective. But I don't know that he is, standard, like, huge standard deviations better than the guy that the Ravens could get in the 3rd or 4th round, who could be, a more passable safety and also let you get a potential impact rusher. Because, as we talked about on this podcast a bunch of times, the longer you wait to go and take a edge rusher or a pass rusher in this draft, the harder it is to find guys who can be that kind of game wrecker. And I know, Gooden, you were talking about just like this defense hasn't really had the opportunity to force a lot of turnovers in the playoffs, but their pass rush has also been kind of MIA at times during this Lamar Jackson era. So again, I leave it to you guys. I could be convinced.
Well, Jonas,
with either one. I'm just glad that we got the extra 4th round.
Who would you say, though, of the edge rushers that are available? I mean, we've got Walter Nolan as an interior rusher. We've got Mike Green on the edge. I think personally, I would take Mike Green off my board, but this is a hypothetical award. And then we've got James Pierce. So anybody there, or Nick Scorton from Texas A&M, like who other than Malachi Starks would you like to take here?
I don't think there's anyone who I would like to take over those two guys. Like, I think Trey Amos is definitely worthy of pick 30. I think if you feel comfortable taking Josh Connerly and saying that you're going to be a guard for the first couple of years, he would definitely make a lot of sense.
So are you saying, would you rather have Malachi Starks or Walter Nolan? That just comes down to it.
I think in this case, probably Walter Nolan, just because of the higher upside, and it's a little bit sexier. And like, if we're being honest, the Malachi Starks trajectory of being awesome in 2023 and dipping a little bit last year is somewhat worrisome. I'm sure that he's going to be, a rock solid player wherever he goes, but you definitely want players ascendant as they come into the draft. That's my only hesitation. Walter Nolan has 2 years of really good production in an SEC defense, so I'd be fine taking him. But I understand that, like, Eric DeCosta probably wouldn't, just because of some of the stuff that we
Gordon,
talked about.
I'm on the Malachi Starks side. You be the deciding vote. Malachi Starks or Walter Nolan?
So Jonas has kind of convinced me on the later safety, because I think as well, like, we've picked up the extra 4th, so I think there's possibly some stuff we can do with 109 and 129 if we need to
Okay.
Because I think they like 90s is the range. So yeah, I think less of a need, but really good value, I think, is getting Nolan here.
Let's do it. We've drafted Walter Nolan with the 30th overall pick. And to me, the worst part about this is we now have to make 12 picks because we have added a 4th round pick. Let's get really
We're
aggressive.
definitely gonna use some of those days.
Yeah, let's get really aggressive on day 3 of this draft, just so that we don't have to be here. Jonas, if the Ravens actually did make 12 picks in the NFL draft, I think you would probably I don't know, throw a fit in the media workroom in Owings Mills. All right. The draft is now rolling into the 2nd round. The Ravens are next on the clock at number 59. So we've got a ways to go. We're at pick 44. Jonas, what's up?
I guess seeing how the draft just fell with Tyler Booker going, I guess we probably also should have discussed him.
Sure.
I'm not in love with the idea of Tyler Booker as a round 1 pick for the Ravens. I understand he's a very safe pick, but I think in the same way that you can get good safeties in round 2, round 3, I think that you can get good linemen. Might not be as sound in pass protection as Tyler Booker, but we probably should have discussed him as an option.
That's fair. The board keeps rolling on. We are on the clock in 3 picks. Kyle Williams, wide receiver from Washington State. Trey Harris, who is one of my favorite players, the Ole Miss wide receiver, is off the board. And now we are on the clock with pick number 59. Guys, some of the guys that are on the board, Tennessee, Omar Norman Lott. I've heard multiple pronunciations of Illuminor or Ayumanor. I don't know exactly how to say the Stanford wide receiver's name. We've got Demetrius Knight Jr., the linebacker from South Carolina. Who sticks out to you guys?
The big thing that jumps out here is that if I knew the draft was going to go this way, I probably wouldn't have taken Nolan, right? If TJ Sanders from South Carolina was going to be there, I probably would have been more likely to. There is one of the. So I was hoping that one of 3 cornerbacks fell to this spot. I was hoping that Azariah Thomas, who went about 2 spots earlier, Benjamin Morrison, who went much earlier in the round, or Darian Porter fell, and Porter is still available.
Jonas, do you think TJ Sanders, Porter?
Can we filter to the cornerbacks?
Sure. Darian Porter.
Could you also filter? Could you include the edge rushers as well?
I will look at them here. I don't think we can include both of them at the same time.
You say. No, they're both there.
Oh, okay. Never mind. They are. So we've got Jared Ivey, Ole Miss edge rusher, Darian Porter, cornerback from Iowa State, Oluwafemi Oladejo from UCLA. Who sticks out to you?
Gordon, do you know how high do you guys have? I guess it's probably looking like he's gone. I guess Swinson from LSU has probably already been taken. If he's not listed
gone. Yeah,
in the top 100 here, right?
I do like him as well.
That would have been nice.
Yeah, there he is. There, Cincinnati at 49.
Yeah, that would have been nice. All right, Paul, can you scroll up? Man, this is tough. I think you could probably say, there's some hope that if you take Porter, who just has all the athletic ability in the world, and hope that someone like Oladejo would be there in the 3rd round. Again, maybe that's a spot where we move up in the 3rd round because we have that extra capital. That he's going to be. I think the comparison that I've heard for Oladejo is a little less refined Tyus Bowser, because he has that coverage ability, having the experience as an off-ball linebacker. He's going to set a hard edge in the run game. And there's some hope based on what he did on tape at the end of his UCLA career, moving over to edge rusher, being able to use that speed to power, get into the backfield. Obviously, it's a little bit of a project, and not all the Ravens projects in the pass rush have worked out. So if we want to go Porter here, just because I think it's pretty good value for him being available this late, and addresses definitely a weak spot on defense, and hope that one of these edge rushers falls to the Ravens, or we move up in the 3rd round and get them. I think that would be fine. But we also might want to just go back and look at the overall big board and see if there's anyone else who's kind of striking.
I'd probably also look at see who's available in the offensive line, like maybe one of those tackle to guard converts.
Yeah, I mean, like I think you can make a strong argument for taking Ursary there and saying like, you are a big bad dude. We're going to put you inside a guard and just kind of have you be our next Patrick McCary, because we know he has that tackle flexibility. We know he's like strong enough athlete that I think he ran like close to a 5-second 40 at 6'6", 330 pounds or whatever he is. So I think that's also a potentially intriguing option. And it's definitely interesting.
Ariante Ursay, Minnesota tackle. Let me tell you, Jonas, if you were Eric DeCosta, I don't know. Who really strikes your fancy? Who sticks out to you guys that you think Darian Porter is intriguing as a cornerback, project cornerback that you mentioned, Jonas, but who would you take if you had to make a selection here?
I think I'm with Gordon, unless Gordon's opinion has changed. I think Porter here makes sense. It's right in line with the consensus big board. He's big, he's strong, he's fast. He fits the prototype for what the Ravens are looking for. And cornerbacks, obviously, he's got a ways to go. And I think there are probably some people doing some helmet scouting who look at Iowa State cornerback and think, oh, we don't want another TJ Tampa, when in fact we don't know what TJ Tampa will be. So I'd be fine with taking Porter and then hoping that something bounces our way, either offensive line or edge rusher wise in the third round.
All right, Darian Porter are going to be our selection. Gordon, you okay with that?
I like it. The only thing I would say here is let's look at the edge defenders and let's kind of map out who we're hoping or how many we're hoping are going to be available for the next pick, because I do wonder if we want to monitor the board and then make a call on a trade up. So I think Oladejo, Kennard,
Kyle Kennard from South Carolina, Jack Sawyer from Ohio State.
I think Gillette from Louisville has been mocked to the Ravens a lot, but it's probably a little bit too rich for my taste to take him before round 4. But he's a guy who, you could line up in the kind of Zadarius Smith mold where you have him out wide on early downs, and then have him lining up over the B gap on pass rush downs, because he's just so crafty and so good technically.
Okay, so we're on the clock next at 91, so we'll monitor the edge rushers, but in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and take an Iowa State corner for the second year in a row, and we're going to take Darian Porter with the 59th overall pick. And guys, we got to keep an eye now for edge rushers who might be falling. Jared Ivey goes off the board. So does TJ Sanders.
Oladejo's
and
gone.
Olufemi Oladejo is gone as well.
And there goes Ursary as well. So there's no.
If we think that somebody is falling, though, we can still. Jalen Milroe is a third-round pick.
Yep.
We can make that trade up. Elijah Arroyo from Miami, tight end, is gone. Right now, we are at the 72nd pick, and we are on the clock at 91. Jackson Dart is a third-round pick. I think he's going to be a first-round pick, but we'll see. Josiah Stewart, Michigan edge rusher, is gone. Anybody that you think Marcus Mbo is gone, the tackle from Purdue?
Well, let's stop the draft right now and just see if there's anyone. I guess we can't really see who.
Kyle Kennard just went off
available.
I think all the edge defenders we were looking at are off the board.
We blew it again, Jonas.
That means we have
for the second straight year.
That means we got to draft a safety.
Well, so the name that I am looking for now, and I think it's going to be whether or not he does or doesn't fall. I think it'll be intriguing. Is Wyatt Milam, the West Virginia tackle, converting to guard, really good zone blocker. And the Ravens were really, really good on zone runs last year because Derrick Henry's phenomenal runner on those. I might consider trying to move up.
Okay.
From 91.
Right now, the Colts are on the clock. We've paused it. They have the 80th overall pick. If we were to trade up from 91 to 80, Jonas? What else would you throw in there? 91 and 136, 129.
I mean, you could probably just try it out with the bar and see. I don't think it would. I think
Maybe try
probably
176 first.
Midday 3 pick. Yeah.
Let's try.
Oh, I think you just resumed the draft rather than offer the
Whoops.
trade.
Well, well, I have botched again. Jonas, last year we traded up for Patrick Paul and he wasn't there. And this year I've botched by not trading when I should have. All right. Well, the Bengals are on the clock at 81. Do we want to try to trade up here?
Let's do it. Let's try.
Yeah, I mean, they need the draft capital.
All right. Let's give up 91. Let's try 176. Offer trade.
I think it's probably going to cost us 136.
Okay. Let's try that.
Yeah.
We've made the trade, and we have traded up to the 81st overall pick. And of the guys available, who do we think we want to take here?
I would take Milam. I would also look at edge because I have another trade up in my head.
Okay.
We should also see what safeties are on the board.
Okay. Special teams, that's safety.
This, by the way, I think is one of the most interesting storylines about this draft is when you get into the second and third round. I love having a good number of picks there because there are a bunch of players who I think can contribute in year one and can be guys that contribute throughout their rookie contract.
I do like Jack Sawyer, the edge rusher from Ohio State, a lot. So, and Jonas, I do know you like Charles Grant, the tackle from William and Mary. So those guys are on the board, as is West Virginia tackle Wyatt Milam. Do you think Milam is probably the preferred player here? And then if Jack Sawyer or those guys fall, we would consider trading up again?
Yeah, I mean, I think Milam gives you the potential of the next Patrick McCary. Again, with him having played tackle at West Virginia, him probably fitting better inside. There's always going to be that hesitation or that concern about just how smoothly you can make that transition. But Gordon brought up the good point about the zone runs. I was actually looking at this last night, completely randomly as I was falling asleep, thinking of Tyler Booker in a Ravens uniform. Like that, they ran the ball really well on like outside zone and stretch runs last year. Just looking at some Sports Info Solutions data, but I think they were like bottom third of the league in the total number of outside zone and stretch runs, which is like, why wouldn't you want to lean more into that? Why wouldn't you want to have guys who can get on the hoof and block people in space? And that is my kind of hesitation with a guy like Tyler Booker. He played for an Alabama system that did not do a lot of outside zone, did not do a lot of stretch, partly because of the kind of bodies that were on that offensive front. So I think if you get more mobile, get guys who look a little bit more like Tyler Linderbaum or move a little bit more like Tyler Linderbaum as opposed to someone like Daniel Failele, then you probably have the right idea for what you want to do offensively. And I think Milam with his athleticism and just the Ravens' commitment to building through the trenches.
All right, so with our third round pick, we're going to take West Virginia tackle Wyatt Milam, and that makes our draft haul so far. Walter Nolan, interior defensive lineman from Ole Miss, Darian Porter, cornerback from Iowa State, and now Wyatt Milam, tackle from West Virginia. We are on the clock next with the 109th pick, but guys, I think if Jack Sawyer falls, I would be comfortable trading up. What do you guys think? Anybody else that you want to ditch a day 3 pick for to trade up for?
The other edge defender I really like is David Walker from Central Arkansas.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. He's just the ultimate bull rush bully.
Let's pause again when we get to 91. Charles Grant has just gone off the board. It looks like David Walker is still on the board. Do we want to trade up?
Is he in the hundreds in the consent?
Yeah, so let me see where his average draft position is, because I've got the mock draft open in another tab.
So we have just so many picks to play with. It's absurd. I mean, it's like we have 2 fourth right now, even with all our trades, we have 2 fourth round picks, a 5th, and then the 4th, 6th, and a 7th.
So his average draft position is 110. So it is right where we pick.
Do we want to wait?
So maybe shipping one of the 6th or 7th rounds just to move up like 4 or 5 spots in the 4th round when we get to the hundreds, Paul.
Then let's resume the draft. We're at 91 on the clock next at 109.
I feel pretty good about the Ravens being able to get at least one of Walker or Gillette here. coming up. So I think that would.
I'm going to pause it again when we get to number 100. And just make sure that the guys that we want are still out there. All right. Savion Williams, speedy wide receiver from TCU, is now off the board. And at pick 101, I've paused it. The LA Rams are on the clock. Do we think about trading up here?
I feel pretty good about the two players, about the fact that both those players will still be available at 110. I mean, I don't think both of them will go. I guess famous.
We could also wait and know it. If one of them goes, then we pause and then we trade up, right? If Gelati goes, then we trade up for Walker.
That's a good point.
Well, Gelati just went at 101.
Speaking of the devil.
Do we trade up to 102? I just don't want to make 12 picks. That's my incentive here.
I also I wouldn't want to
and also the Lions need
these are the last two guys. These are the last two guys I'd be okay expecting much from in year one.
So we're trying to trade from 109 to 102, where the Lions have the final pick of the third round. So that would be the final pick of Friday. If we try 180. Yeah.
Let's work its way. Work your way from the back, Paul.
50% chance if
maybe package.
We traded our last pick of the day, so 243, which means Jonas gets to leave earlier on Saturday, in order to trade up back into the end of the third round. And we're going to go ahead and select guards here. And edge rushers.
Edge rushers.
All right. Who are we going with here, guys?
Keep scrolling down.
David Walker, Central Arkansas.
Yeah. It may be a little bit overvalued here, but Walker, the Ravens don't really have a lot of guys who are going to win with strength. Or Van Noy is a little bit more savvy. Adafe, despite being built like Adonis, is a little bit more of a technician. So I think the hope was that, you would be able to get Swinson in day two, a guy who is just going to try to use speed to power, use that bull rush to knock people over. Walker went to the Senior Bowl and I think was surprisingly good for coming from where he is in a smaller school. So you get him under Chuck Smith. Hopefully he can fill out a little bit. Hopefully he can improve his run defense. And, I think at this point, we're probably getting a little bit too late in the day to wait and address the edge rusher spot. So he may not turn into anything, but I think based on his skill set, he could definitely be a guy who could contribute situations.
All right, David Walker is going to be our pick at 102. And we are back and rolling. Our next pick is going to be at 129, so we can trade up again. If there's anybody that you guys see falling, let me know. Jack Sawyer has gone off the board. That's a miss by us.
We should probably
safety is probably.
Probably
it would be interesting as well. So so there was a comment we had around why is edge so important when the Ravens already have 5 edge defenders, and probably speaks a little bit to why I would go David Walker over Jack Sawyer. In that, I think Jack Sawyer would be a good edge defender for them, the same way that they have Adafe Owe and Kyle Van Noy, who are good edge defenders. But they just don't have the guy. They don't have a guy that can take over a game. And I think David Walker is nowhere close to being guaranteed to do that. But his FCS tape was so dominant that he's probably the guy that you could get at this spot that I think has the potential to be something really, really special.
Awesome.
So someone also, not to harsh your vibe on Jack Sawyer, Paul, but I remember seeing on Twitter a couple months ago, someone pointing out that Jack Sawyer just does not have an ass, and the ass is the seat of power in football. And I think that's put me off on if he doesn't have that, I don't know what else to say.
If he doesn't have the buns,
you got to have a little bit more back there to convince me.
Jonas, you sound like one of the scouts in Moneyball, where you're talking about the attractiveness of this guy's girlfriend being a determining factor of his success. He doesn't have the ass. Can he really play football? All right, we are at pick 120 now, and we are on the clock at 129. And we're looking at safety because that was a pick that Jonas convinced us not to take in the first round. So we're going to have to address that.
With our Darius Washington
Yeah,
signing his restricted free agent tender,
Mhm.
like they are okay at safety. It just depends on who's available. If they can get like a guy who can contribute 500 or so snaps.
Yeah, we are on the clock once again.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to have Sanker or Billy Bowman, but both those guys just flew off in the last couple picks. So that is bad news for us.
We are on the clock now at 129. Jalen Reed is a
I've
Penn
heard
State safety I like.
I've heard it's probably around too early, but I have heard good things about the Cal safety and pretty much all the Cal prospects in this. Again, kind of out of my depth here now that we're out of the top 100 prospects, but just based on the stuff I've read, stuff I've heard, I think all the Cal guys are pretty good prospects. I think probably with them going from 129 to 176, maybe they would have to move up to get the Cal guy, but we can obviously go best player.
I'd probably be okay leaving safety for now because it is a bit of a risk when it's almost 40 picks, but I think you've got guys like Malachi Moore and Jalen Reed that if they can't, then I think we can reach a little bit on the next pick.
Jonas, you liked Riley Leonard. You had the Ravens taking him with what, a 4th or 5th round pick in one of your mock drafts on the BaltimoreBanner.com, where people can subscribe $1 for 6 months.
Yeah, I just think that there are more pressing needs at this point, and I wouldn't feel great about taking both a quarterback and a kicker in this draft when there are.
Joshua Farmer is a guy who's been discussed as a day 1, day 2 guy at times during this process. The Florida State interior defensive lineman. Does he look attractive to you guys? I know we already have an interior defensive lineman in Walter Nolan.
Yeah, that would probably put me off a little bit. Who do we have available at the running back spot at this point?
Jaden Blue from Texas, Jarquez Hunter from Auburn, Brashad Smith from SMU, Trevor Etienne from Georgia.
I do like Smith. I just don't know that the Ravens would. I think he might be a little bit redundant as long as they feel good about Keaton Mitchell's comeback from that injury a couple of seasons ago. So I don't necessarily know that they would go running back.
If we want to do something that's close to BPA and also address returner, I forget, does Isaiah Bond have any return experience, Gordon, or is he just fast?
I'm honestly not sure. I could look that up. I guess my question with him would be, with the off the field stuff, would he just flat out not be on the Ravens board, right? Which is a possibility.
Right. I think you're probably right. Paul, can you go back to best player available?
Currently, the best player available is Ohio State quarterback Will Howard, and I just disagree with that. Jonas, what are you thinking?
I feel like Anise Peebles at this point would have been a good pick, but we already took Walter Nolan. I mean, there's nothing that says that a defensive line that only has basically 3 guys in the rotation couldn't add another guy, but it feels a little bit too samey with getting a guy who's more inclined to rush the passer than not.
I also wouldn't mind Maryland wide receiver Ty Felton, but maybe this is a little early.
What about linebacker as well?
Well, I think on PFF's, I think on PFF's board he's a lot lower than he is elsewhere, because I think Dan Jeremiah had him as a top 70 prospect. So to get a guy like Ty, again, kind of pandering to the hometown audience for this one, but I think that can make some sense. And no guarantees that all the kind of skinny guys on this Ravens receiving core are going to be able to hold up.
I do like Jeffrey Bassa, the Oregon linebacker, and I think there's value in getting him in the 120s, 130s. Linebacker is a tough one because I think it depends. How do they feel about Trenton Simpson? Because it felt like at the end of last season that they viewed him as a liability that they had to keep off the field, at which point they probably do want to add at the linebacker position. If they do feel good about him starting, the depth they have there and the special teams depth that they have, it becomes far less of a need for me.
I'm very good with taking a linebacker here. I don't think
Yeah,
that
I'm fine.
the Ravens are in any way committed to having Trenton Simpson start the whole season.
And if you're good enough to be like a round 4 linebacker, you're probably athletic enough to play special teams. And Lord knows the Ravens need a lot of special teams help, and they just need linebackers flat out because they don't really have anyone besides those top 2, and I guess Jacob Hummel. So I'm totally fine with
Great.
Jeffrey Bassett here.
I'm going to select Jeffrey Bassett with the 129th pick, but I think we should keep an eye for guys that could fall as well if we want to, because our next pick is at 176. That's not for a while. So maybe if Ty Felton continues to fall, or if who are some of the safeties that you liked, Gordon, that you would be interested in trading up for?
So I feel like we probably don't need to trade up, because I think I think one of Reed Woodson and Malachi Moore are probably going to be there as late as 183. So I think we can probably make the pick here, consider if we want to move up for Felton in a little bit if he falls, and then use that 183 on, let's cross our fingers and hope one of 3 safeties falls that far.
Okay. Let's go ahead and take Oregon linebacker Jeffrey Bassett, and that makes our haul Walter Nolan, Darian Porter, Wyatt Mulum, and David Walker, and now Jeffrey Bassett.
Wow.
We have resumed the draft. We are on the clock again at 176, and now we're in the 130s. Isaiah Bond goes to the Philadelphia Eagles, so he is off the board. Ty Felton is still out there. Safety Sebastian Castro, Iowa, is off the board as well. Miles Frazier, guard from LSU as well.
So Paul, are we on pace? Are we on pace to make 11 picks if we don't trade?
We so far have made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 picks, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 10 picks. So we could afford to ship one out, but 10 picks is better than 11. Jalen Reed, the safety from Penn State, is gone.
So we're probably one safety away from me worrying a little bit about that.
Okay. Ty Felton just went 146. That would have been a steep price to go from 176 to 146.
Steal.
It is a steal. All right. Jordan Hancock, safety from Ohio State, is gone. How did the 49ers lose their 5th round pick? What did I miss there? They forfeited it?
And Atlanta lost theirs as well. The Atlanta one was the Kirk Cousins thing, I think.
That's right. Riley Leonard, quarterback, just went off the board in round 5. Emory Jones Jr., tackle, is gone.
Gordon, is any part of you hoping that the Ravens use like a day 3 pick on Willie Lampkin because of his potentially being in the air?
100%. I think every single fan base around the NFL wants their team to draft Willie Lampkin, just because like we all love an underdog story, and like the prospect of him making it work at offensive line is great, but also the idea of him being a fullback, I think people like that as well.
All right. Craig Woodson, the Cal safety, is gone. So at 163, we're at 164. Ravens are on the clock at 176.
I think we probably need to move up for a safety at this point, because I think there were 3 that we were looking at, and I think another safety outside that 3 went, but Woodson and Reed were 2 of our 3. So
if we were to trade from 176 to 164, we give up 212, which is now our last pick in the draft. This trade will likely be accepted. Jonas?
Let's see if we can give up a later round pick in next year's draft. Just I think 10 is a nice number, I think, to come out of this draft.
10 players on a loaded roster, Jonas? How are you going to fit all these guys?
One's probably going to be a returner. One's probably going to be a kicker, though. So
True. I don't know. All right, let's offer this trade to the Eagles. We made the move. We traded them a 7th round pick in 2026 and gave up 176 in order to get 164. Now we're on the clock. Let's look at safeties. Malachi Moore, you mentioned him, Alabama safety. Gordon, you want to take him?
He's probably who I would go for here. I think he strikes me as the type of player that they would like.
Okay. Let's take Malachi Moore then with our 5th round pick. We are on the clock next at 183. Guys, I just want to, I feel like these picks are burning a hole in my pocket, but if you guys are comfortable taking 10 players and trying to squeeze them on a roster, be my guest.
What do we want to get out of the last four?
And I do think Malachi Moore is. I do think Malachi Moore is good value for where we got him. Looking at Brugler's The Beast, he was his ninth ranked safety. So I think to get him this late in day 3 is
yeah.
good job by
Gordon,
us.
good question about what we have left. Let's run through real quickly. We've taken interior defensive line, cornerback, tackle, edge rusher, linebacker, and safety, and we have 4 picks left, all in the 6th round. What positions? I think we should take at some point. I think we should take a kicker, and at some point we haven't added any wide receivers or kick returners, punt returners. So what do you guys think?
That's what I would like to do, and probably another offensive lineman. I think I would like to get another offensive line, someone who can be developmental there. So there's at least 3 picks that I want to make.
Jonas?
We could also just draft 4 kickers.
Let's bring in 5 kickers into camp, and let's just see who wins.
Got ourselves a cook-off, boys.
That sounds ideal. All right, we're on the clock next at 183, so we can. I mean, if you guys are comfortable just waiting until 183, I am as well, and just seeing who's on the board. It's also difficult to keep track of who is being taken and who is left at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think we mentioned Paul in a pod or 1 or 2 pods ago, just the possibility of getting someone like Dante Thornton, Baltimore zone as a late round dart throw. I'm not sure if he was
Tennessee wide receiver,
size, speed, he could at least contribute on special teams.
That would make sense to me at 183. I would probably go receiver or offensive line at 183, and then that 203 pick is probably the kicker.
All right, we're on the clock at 183 now. Should we take? Look, if Syracuse is Kyle McCord is there as a Orange graduate myself, I mean, I think we got to run and St. Joe's prep grad. I think we got to run the clock, run that pick in. But let's look at wide receivers.
Armstrong is a very willing blocker, which I think they would love. But I think one of the 2. Yeah.
Lambert Smith also.
That's what I was thinking.
Right?
The 3
I think he might.
The 3 next guys there, I think, are potential returners.
Okay. Between Andrew Armstrong, Arkansas wide receiver, Elijah Badger, wide receiver from Florida, Keandre Lambert Smith from Auburn. Who do you guys like here? Who should they prioritize a blocker to replace Nelson Aguilar, or should they prioritize a returner in order to shore up that spot?
I'm most familiar with Lambert Smith, so that's what I'm gravitating toward. But if we think that like Armstrong's been decently productive the past couple of years, right, Gordon?
Yeah, decently productive, and the fact that he's a willing blocker, I think they would like that. But I do think they want to get someone who has the return ability in there as well. So that's why I'm just looking to see if Badger did much as a returner.
The good news is the Ravens are also on the clock again at 2:03, so maybe one of these guys falls.
Let's see what Badger did as a returner. Not much this past year. He did when Elijah Badger was at Arizona State. He averaged almost 30 yards a return in 2023. So I do think that's a possibility. But if Jonas likes the Auburn receiver as a returner as well, I don't think that's incorrect.
Jonas, what say you?
Yeah, let's just go with him. I think the Ravens have had him in for a visit too, so it just makes sense from a
Lambert Smith or
standpoint.
Badger? Lambert Smith. All right. Keandre Lambert Smith, Auburn wide receiver. We're taking at pick 183. So we've addressed wide receiver returner as well with one of our picks, and we have 3 left: 203, 210, and 212. We could double dip at wide receiver if we want to take a bigger blocker or maybe another returner. These are all dart throws on day 3, and we could also take a kicker.
I think this is the spot. I'm hoping Fitzgerald. That's the kicker. If he falls to 203, I think that would be the pick. feel like he's a guy. I want to say they've had him in for a visit, or I definitely saw them linked with him at some point recently.
Yeah, I think they had him in for a workout recently. Don't kickers generally go if they're even taking it all? Aren't they usually pretty late in the PFF mocks?
They are. So it would depend who else is available there, if there is anyone. But
all right, we are on the clock at 2:03. Guys, Kyle McCord is still there. I mean, come on. He's going to be a franchise quarterback for somebody. Let's look at kickers. Ryan Fitzgerald, you mentioned him. Florida State kicker is still there. What do you guys think?
I know he makes kicks, so that's fine. Who else is? Who? What are all the kickers there?
All of them are there. I do think Fitzgerald is the best, of the bunch.
All right, let's take Ryan Fitzgerald. We may have found the heir apparent to Justin Tucker with the 203rd pick.
So the next two picks, we're just looking for a warm body who can play offensive line, and then just someone else.
Anyone. I did notice not long before, I didn't even think about this as a possibility, but not long before Fitzgerald came off the board, there was Deion Walker, the Kentucky interior defender, who's just fallen massively. He would be interesting to me later on in the draft.
All right. We are on the clock again at 2:10, and our final pick is 2:12 because we've traded 2:43. Guys, I'll be honest. If Kyle McCord is still there at 2:12, I just have to pull the trigger. I just have to.
I mean, we might as well, because we're going to pick two guys later. So if it's worth it and it can quit your belly, and then we might as well just stay.
All right, and we're on the clock though at 2:10 here. Who do we like?
We do effectively have like two. We have one spare pick, right? Because I think our plan was to go offensive line with one of these last two picks. So I would probably go with McCord here if you really want to go for him, and then we're then picking like potentially a backup center with the final pick.
This would make me immensely happy. Jonas, can you sign off on this? Kyle McCord taking 210.
Yeah, but you're going to have to write the blurb when we write this up.
Kyle McCord, St. Joe's Prep and Syracuse's own, goes at 210. Outstanding. And now we're on the clock again at 212. You wanted to look, Gordon, at offensive line for our final pick?
Yeah, I feel like Jake Majors as well. Can you click in on his profile? Because I'm intrigued to see if he... Yeah, no, he's not particularly good in zone.
Jake Majors, Texas center.
The other... Who else is available there at guard? Because there is one... Oh, okay. So, yeah, there's a couple of offensive linemen here I quite like. They're both small school guys. A little bit further down, there was Jackson Slater from Sacramento State. And then Carson Vincent from Alabama A&M. Both of them are guys who I think in the 7th round are nice projects to take.
Okay. Jonas?
Isn't Holland Pierce like the huge
Oh, might be, yeah.
Like 6'8", 400. I'm not saying that they should take him. I'm just bringing that up.
How big is Holland Pierce? Rutgers?
If you go to first look, it would tell you his size if you go into his profile and
first look.
And then first look.
6'8", 344 pounds.
Wow.
Why have one Daniel Falele when you can have two?
I think Jackson Slater is the move here. Looking at the beast, Brugler has him as a 4th to 5th round talent. He's a 4-year starter at Sacramento State. Again, we know that EDC generally stays away from these small school guys, but I think this late in the draft, it's totally defensible.
So we are selecting Sacramento State guard Jackson Slater, and that completes our draft haul. We're going to speed this up to the very end.
Unless we want to trade back.
It's going to be a no from me, Jonas, because we have made 10 picks in this draft, and Mr. Irrelevant has been taken. we are going to get a draft grade from PFF, and we are going to read it out here. Folks, how did we do? A+ with Walter Nolan, B- with Darian Porter, C with Wyatt Milam, C with David Walker.
I will say the Wyatt Milam one as well. Like that's purely because they were looking at that as a tackle, right? Like if you flip that to guard where the Ravens have a need, it becomes like a much more expected pick.
Edge rusher David Walker also gets a C. Jeffrey Bassa, Oregon linebacker, gets a B-. Malachi Moore, safety, gets a C. Keandre Lambert-Smith gets a D-. Jonas, what have you done to us? Wide receiver and returner. Ryan Fitzgerald, kicker, also gets a D-. Guys, Kyle McCord in the 6th round got an A+. I don't know what to tell you. I just know how to do this thing. Jackson Slater, B- in the 6th round. What do you think of our draft haul?
It's pretty good. Like I think the one regret I have is I would have probably gone edge in the 1st round, knowing where the board fell, and we could have grabbed an interior guy in the 3rd or 4th. But I do really like David Walker, so we can ignore the PFF MBS grade for David Walker because I think that's an A+.
Jonas?
I think this is like the draft nicks kind of draft, because you got some guys who are small school fan favorites like David Walker. I think people obviously really appreciate Kyle McCord. I think obviously the quality of this draft is going to be determined by just how well Walter Nolan pans out. I do think that dropping him into this Ravens locker room, into this Ravens defense, it could work, especially because you wouldn't ask him to be more than like a, 40 to 50% snap count kind of guy because of the depth up there. He could learn from Nandi Madubuike, he could learn from Travis Jones, learn from Broderick Washington, be a guy who, harnesses all his elite physical tools and maybe gets a little bit better technically. And by year 2, year 3, he's just ready to wreck shop in the AFC North. Again, I don't think that in reality he would be a 1st round pick because of the Ravens' concerns potentially with character, because of he wasn't a team captain. These small things that kind of color people's biographies for the Ravens draft from. But I do think everywhere else, it's a group of good guys, good players, and I think most importantly,
I like our overall draft haul. I feel like it's diverse in terms of position. I think we got some edge rushers with some upside, some pass rushers with some upside. We addressed safety with Malachi Moore, who I think was a steal in round 5. We got a kicker. I think that overall, this is a very good group of players with our 10 guys. And if the Ravens came out of this draft with these 10 players, I feel like we would have to have a positive review. Good stuff.
Gordon, is there, if the Ravens go like unconventional, like a position that we are not thinking of in that 1st round, where do you think the most value is in round 2 at number 59? Like, let's say, I don't know, like T-Mac falls to them at 27, or they take an Omarion Hampton. Like, where do you think that means that they have to go?
I think you're right with the position of unconventional. Like, I think wide receiver is discounted as an early pick the Ravens would make, but like at some point they have to work out a long-term contract extension with Zay Flowers if they want to keep him around. So like either Tetero McMillan being the guy they get as like the kind of ex-receiver that can learn from DeAndre Hopkins, or if they do think that they're going to struggle to pay Zay Flowers alongside the other guys, a Luther Burden is more like that kind of clone there. For me, that 2nd round pick feels like the right spot for a cornerback. Like unless they really like Jahdae Barron or Will Johnson falls to them, I feel like cornerback isn't really there for them in the 1st round. At which point, for me, cornerback becomes the kind of 2nd round spot.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that was fun, guys. I had a blast, and we're going to have even more of a blast on Thursday and Friday and Saturday. In the meantime, Gordon, where can everybody find your good content with PFF and fill out their own mock draft?
Yeah, you'll find, if you want to go and do your own mock draft, it's pff.com/mock, and you'll find me on social media, pff_Gordon.
Awesome. Well, Jonas, can't wait to see you all weekend. We're going to get a little bit sick of each other, but we already are.
Yeah. Gordon, I have to ask you this. I brought this up with Paul yesterday on Slack, and I think he kind of groaned. Are you a fan of Andor, the
Uh,
show,
I'm not. I'm
the Star
aware of
Wars
it,
show?
but I'm not a big Star Wars guy, unfortunately.
Okay. Me neither. I just really like Andor, and I was rewatching it this weekend because the new season I think drops today, and there was a line in there from strangely enough one of the antagonists that like for me resonated with it when it comes to the Ravens edge rusher strategy. The quote is, and tell me tell me just how perfect this is. There comes a time when the risk of doing nothing becomes the greatest
I think
risk of all.
that's fair. Yeah,
Does that just not typify?
I
feel
think
like
that's very fair. Yeah.
I feel like somebody more important has said something similar that you could have quoted, but yeah, if you wanted to quote Andor
about
yeah,
like
about
civil
something
rights?
actually important. Well, we'll see if they address edge rusher, if they address wide receiver. Who's to say with the number 27 overall pick in Thursday's draft? Gordon McGuinness, thanks so much for joining us. For Jonas Shaffer, I'm Paul Mancano. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we will catch you next time.